Hey there everyone, so have you heard about Wizard of Legend? It's a roguelite with badass magic. It fits into the same genre as Binding of Isaac, but instead of trying to escape your crazy mama's basement filled with some fucked up bats and shit, we're a little guy in a cape who's part Aang, part Naruto, and part Harry Potter.
You're a wizard, Harry.
I'm a what?
The premise of the game is simple. We've gotten magically teleported from the real world to this kind of bland, generic-looking castle, and the only way to get back is to become the Wizard of Legend. And how do we do this? Well, we gotta beat the Elite Four. I mean, we have to beat the Fire Lady, the Water Lady, the Earth Guy, and this dude in this pretty badass cloak. So we set off, and we get these spells to choose from. We have no idea what's going on, but we see immediately that it's out of 99. And you get go, oh boy, this is great. We're gonna get 99 different spells to choose from. And so now you kind of feel like your pallet town is Ash Ketchum, and you're gonna set off to be like the best that no one is, and you're gonna catch them all. So to do this, we have to pass through 3 different biomes and beat the Elite Four to get the chance to go home. So what are these starting spells? Well, we get a basic, a dash, a standard, and a signature. This combined is our Arcana. You quickly realize that your signature spell defines your playstyle because it's the most powerful spell in your repertoire. And when you go into Super Saiyan mode, it's your signature spell that gets to pull off these really cool, flashy, alternative kind of abilities. So we collect more spells as we start to advance through the dungeon. But these starting 4 are our identity as a wizard. So with all our spells ready to go, we set off, we go north, we get into the tall grass, we go into the dungeon, we get to explore this room, we get to beat these bad guys, we're trying to barter our way with these merchants that pop up to try to become more powerful, so that when we get to the first boss, we're not totally unprepared. And when you get to the first boss, it wasn't my first attempt, let me tell you. You're at 150 health, you have no idea what you're going to do, you have no idea what his moves are, you have no idea when you're going to attack and when you're not, but you kind of pull it off and you're like, huzzah, let's go. And so you get into the second dungeon and you're like, yeah, and you die to just some random arrow. So you're like, fuck this, why should I keep going? Well, you gotta keep going because you realize that this process of discovery of Arcana is what drives the momentum forward in the early hours. You might have a spell that you don't like, so you want to get a new one. So then you're like, well, which one it's gonna be? You get to fulfill the fantasy if you want to be a water mage or an airbender or a dude that shoots fire or Harry Potter, I don't know. But the gameplay with this early customization is great. I found out that I wanted to be this guy who uses air spells with water dashes and little lightning hugs of death. But when you step back from the craziness of slinging spells, the meta elements of the game start to become a little shallow. As you get through your 10th or your 11th or your 30th run, you've seen all the bad dudes there is to see. You figure out that the Fireland, the Waterland, and the Earthland are just the same places with different coats of paint. You realize that there's 99 trinkets, but most of them are crap. And there's 99 spells, but you're never going to use 90 of them, so what's the point? There isn't a whole lot of depth to the game besides this brilliant action, and it's not a huge turnoff, because the Arcana and the spells and the moment-to-moment action redeems for some of these gameplay design flaws. What does deserve more attention though is the lack of replayability. Because there's this deficit of variety in both the Fire Lady, the Earth Lady, those people, as well as the bad dudes, as well as the levels, when you finally become the Wizard of Legend, you don't really want to go back and do it differently. You don't unlock new modes or new variants. And you're not really encouraged to diversify because you've already become the Wizard of Legend. What would fix this, besides new elite modes or whatever, post-game or whatever you want to call them, are more multiplayer options. Right now, there's 2-player co-op and 2-player versus. And the co-op, yeah, sure, it's fun. You can play with your cat or your best bud or whatever, and you kind of go through the game as normal, beating the Elite Four. When I first tried the versus mode, I was expecting, oh, cool, maybe we'll get some different unique modes or maps or playstyles or something, but not really. You get to choose 4 Arcana, you get thrown in this kind of bland, generic throne room, and you duke it out. And the mechanics don't feel any different, it's best of 3. What could be great is instead a little lackluster. They have to fix some of them stagger mechanics to make the moment-to-moment gameplay more engaging. You should be able to play with 4 people, maybe if you gotta switch it up or something, but multiplayer could be great, and it could add some more value to this game to keep you coming back, but sadly, it's just not there. There's one other frustrating element that I still don't understand why it's in the game, but it's these fucking little gaps that you encounter throughout the dungeon. I didn't realize until 5 or 6 hours through, and maybe that's just me, that you can just walk right to the edge and you won't fall off. It's only when you dash wrong that you lose a lot of health, and I lost a lot of health to these fuckers. It took me about 12 hours to beat, and I have to say, for the majority of those hours, I was having a lot of fun. Despite some of these flaws, and despite the replayability issues, Wizard of Legend is not a $70 game. It's well worth it to be played and for you to explore and figure out what kind of crazy arcana combos tickle your fancy or tickle other things. I don't know. For its price, its length, its sharp controls, its crisp animations, and it does look nice even though the environments are a little generic. It does get a positive score. I would certainly recommend it to any one of you. It gets that buddy seal of approval. So go out and try it. It doesn't have the heart or the replayability. It's not quite as addicting as Pokemon Blue, but it does have lightning hugs of death, and that's pretty awesome.
I wanna be the very best, like no one ever was. To catch them is my real test, to train them is my